Woo! We have a good conversation today. Today on the show, I have Dr. Jennifer Donahue, aka my cousin Jen. Jen is a combat veteran who served both in Iraq and Afghanistan. She is a retired U.S. Navy Commodore who has led over 1,800 soldiers, the second female U.S. Navy Commodore in all of history. She is an entrepreneur and founded a high-end engineering corporation. She has her PhD in seismology, specializing in earthquake design for world-changing infrastructure. She is a total badass, and I get to interview her today because she came out with a book called Becoming the Warrior, Harnessing Your Inner Strength to Silence Self-Doubt. So Jen sits down with me, and I get to ask her how she uses everything that she learned in the military, all of her military tactics, to use those tactics against the voices in our heads that tell us that we're not good enough, or that we don't belong, or that we don't deserve a seat at the table, or that we're not skilled enough. Jen teaches us how to fight those voices. And today we get to hear more about her story, and we get to walk away from this conversation with some tangible tips and also just some great big sister advice about how to be an effective female leader in the workplace, especially if that workplace is mostly men. And so without further ado, here's my conversation with Dr. Jennifer Donahue, aka Jen. Jen, welcome to Long Distance Friends. I'm so happy you're here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I mean, this is going to be so much fun. Like I said, like you're my cousin. It's like
Yes.
this is going to be a really fun episode.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely is. Jen, you just came out with a book, and that's pretty
I did.
exciting. That's
I
pretty
did.
legit. I'm so excited for
I know.
you. When does your book actually launch?
It launches on March 24th, 2026.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we've got some time. We've got a runway
We do.
here. That's
But
awesome.
it's going to be available. Well, it's already available for pre-order right now. And then it's
Okay.
going to be available on Amazon in like 12 days.
Okay, so everybody pre-order because that really helps out authors when you show support and interest in their books, right?
It does.
Yes.
And I
So
have like
everybody
all kinds of
pre-order.
cool stuff that comes with it. So
Oh, nice. Awesome. Well, let's circle back to that at the end. But Jen, would you tell us just like a 5 to 10 minute version of your story? I know that's kind of a hard task because you've got a lot in there of just your journey in the military and with your career in engineering and how all of that unfolded.
sure. So it's not a straight line. So I'll go ahead and tell
Yeah.
you that right now. It's all over the place. I started out at Texas A&M. I was an engineer, and I looked at all of my friends, and they were just going down to Houston. They were getting jobs with, big oil companies, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to go see the world. I want to go experience things. And
And you're
so I
coming from
joined.
West Texas. So you were like,
I
I'm
joined.
done with all that.
Yeah, I was like, no, no more. I was going to say no more deserts, but
Yeah.
that didn't turn out well anyway. But yeah, so I decided, you know what, I'm going to join the Navy. And I got into a very special program in the Navy for engineers. And what they do is they do contracting and things like that on bases. But one of the cool things that they do is they go with the Marine Corps, and they go and they build for the Marines, because obviously you need bases, you need roads, you need water wells, you need latrines, you need all of that stuff. And that's what I did most of my career. So Guam was my very first duty station. That was so much fun. You're out in the middle. I mean, Guam to like Midland, Texas, like you can't get it like any
Yeah.
farther away from that. My mom was always calling me at the wrong time of day because she couldn't figure out the time zones. Sorry, mom, I love you. But yeah,
Yeah.
the 2 a.m. calls were kind of interesting. But I also met a super handsome guy there, and we
Yes.
later wound up getting married. Now, whenever he got out of the Navy, he wound up going to San Francisco. So I had to get off active duty so that I could follow him, because there's no active duty Navy like anywhere near San Francisco. So I became a civilian, but I was also in the reserves, and I continued to build. And so I was doing contracting, I was doing construction management, but I was also in the reserves. And what happened was I kept getting called back to active duty multiple times. So I was in Iraq. It was really cool. I was the operations officer for the Seabees, and we were building all over Western Iraq. We were drilling water wells, we were doing infrastructure reconnaissance, we were looking at bridges, we were building bases for Marines, like out in the middle of nowhere. It was so much fun. So that's what I got to do there. Came back and decided, hey, you know what? I feel like I can do more. And so I went and got my master's and PhD in engineering, and I became an earthquake engineer, which is actually pretty awesome anyway. Then I got called back to active duty again. At this time, I was the commanding officer of a battalion of 800 personnel, and we went to Afghanistan. Came back, still decided, you know what? I need more. And so I decided I'm going to start my own company.
Yeah.
So I started my own company. I mean, why not? My husband actually jokes that I can't hold down a job, but it's like, but I just keep pivoting. It's like, hey, I want to grow. I want to do something new. And so I started my own company. And right towards the very end of my career in the Navy as a reservist, I was the Commodore in charge of 1,800 personnel. And they were deployed all over the world. Some of them were in home port. But, we're really talking about 90% men, maybe 8 to 9% women. It was very lopsided. And so I was really honored to be only the second female Commodore that they'd ever had. So that was, that kind of wraps it up. But then I was like, okay, well, now I'm retired. What do I do next? So I decided, hey, why don't I become a speaker? And this is my way to give back. I decided to write a book because everybody wanted to know more about what was going on. And that kind of brings us up to today.
Yeah.
Is that 5 minutes?
Yeah. Well done.
You.
Yeah, that is amazing. It's been so cool. Just as I'm reading the book, hearing more about your story and hearing more of those personal things that happened throughout your journey and just what you've learned and what you've had to go through. There was one particular story where, was it you were in Iraq or Afghanistan when you had that really bad boss colonel?
That was in Afghanistan.
That was in Afghanistan. And you talk about how you're going up in helicopters, you're getting shot at, you have a contract out for your life, you have suicide bombers all around you. And even with all of this high stress, at the end of the day, what really bothered you the most and the real enemy in this situation was the colonel, your boss at the time, because of how degrading and mean and divisive he was. And so would you tell us a little bit more about that and maybe just what you have learned from leadership about that and how you took that situation and used that to help you become a better leader?
Anna, I will tell you, sometimes the best way to learn leadership is from bad leaders.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. That's the way that I tried to turn this whole situation around. Because I would look at him and something would go wrong. One of his units, because he was the colonel and then he had us, the Navy Seabees under him and like a couple other units. Something would go wrong at one of those other units and he would just flay these people. Like it didn't matter who was on the phone. It didn't matter who was in the meeting. He would just yell and scream and degrade and just make these people feel so small, like they didn't even matter. And like, why did you even get born kind of thing? It was really bad. And so what I did is I started to think about, okay, what was the situation? But then I started to think about how would I have handled something differently? And I think that's the real key to this is, yeah, you can complain about your boss all day long, but start to think about, okay, what would I do in that situation? Because let's be honest, there is nothing new under the sun. Whatever happened in that situation is probably going to happen to you as well. And it did. While I was over there, I had a unit that totally disappointed me. And one of the things I was like, I need to just fire that guy. And I was like, wait a minute. And I had to kind of like rewind a little bit and think about, no, that's the way that he would have done it.
Yeah.
This is how I want to do this, because I had already thought about it ahead of time. And if I hadn't done that, I might have just had the knee-jerk reaction, fired somebody, yelled at him or whatever it is. But I realized, no, I don't want to be that type of leader.
Yeah.
And that's probably the best thing that you can do when you have those really bad leaders. But I will tell you, this guy, he was so bad. He didn't understand anything that we did. And he just kind of like tried to stuff us into a little box. Realize I was in charge of 800 personnel. I had almost 400 personnel still in home port. Actually, no, sorry, 300 people in home port, 500 forward. I had about 250 that were with the SOF units, the Special Operations Forces. I had 250 that were directly with me in Kabul. And he was trying to treat us like we were, only like a 12-person unit. And I'm like, no, no, we got a whole lot going on. And like I said, every meeting, like he would just rip somebody apart. I had a whiteboard, so I was in Kabul. He was down in Bagram. And so every time like he would rip somebody apart, I'd like make a little mark on my dry erase board. And I mean, it's like
Gamify it
it
a little
was
bit.
filled, it was
Yeah.
totally filled up. And when you have that type of boss, there's two things that you can do. You can basically say, okay, this is what it is. A lot of people were starting to turn on each other. They were stabbing each other in the back. I mean, it was such a toxic environment. There was officer against officer because something got messed up and they didn't want, it was their finger pointing. It was horrible. But I kind of took another direction as well in that. And I felt like, hey, I'm supposed to be a better leader. And so what I did is I started taking other units almost under my umbrella and say, hey, you know what? I got you. Come here. You're going to work with me and we're going to get through this, because just ripping somebody down, ripping them apart doesn't do anything for them. You need to mentor them. You need to train them. You need to give them support. Yeah, they might have messed up, but go through the motions of really understanding, what's going on in that person's life and how can you help make them better. So that
Yeah.
was my other little mission while I was over there, is all of these other little units trying to take in their leaders and try to boost them up a little bit.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, in your book you talk about the cousins, which are the mean little voice and the sneaky little bastard, and we'll get into that. But it's almost like you had a third little guy on your shoulder, and that was your bad boss. And it's like, I'm not going to be him.
Right.
I'm not going to listen to him. Whatever he's saying, I'm going to do the opposite.
Right. Right. Oh
Yeah.
man. Yeah, that guy. Yes.
So then, was this in Afghanistan where you came home and you were just totally depleted and hit rock bottom? Was that all the same tour?
It was.
Oh,
So, really after that day to day, just getting beat down by this guy, he's telling me that I suck. I think I got threatened to fire, like he fired me like almost like 4 times, just because I didn't agree with something that he might have said, like, this is the way to do it. And I've talked to several of my colleagues and they're like, yeah, he is just not a good person. But that day in, day out, just getting beat down, beat down, beat down. There was other circumstances that came up after trying to be a shield for basically my entire battalion, trying to be a shield for other units. Man, I was spent. I was absolutely spent.
mm-hmm.
And I just felt like, you know what? I don't have anything left. And I started to let what he was telling me started to get into my brain. Like, maybe I'm not that good. Maybe I don't deserve to be here. Maybe I am worthless. And that's when I really hit rock bottom.
Yeah. And then, of course, the tragic situation where one of the soldiers who is loosely associated with you, if I understand that correctly, took his own
Yeah.
life. And then you come home and you have 54 negative accounts that somehow pointed towards you. And you're like, no, these are not really against me, but that you come home and you are basically counseled, right? Because you have all of these negative reports against you falsely. So you're dealing with all of this against your reputation, and you have just tried and tried to rise above everything that you've just went through, and then you come home and it's not the homecoming that you
No.
probably thought you were going to get. And so how did you cope after such harsh criticism and coming home and hitting rock bottom? How did you get out of that hole that you were in?
I actually stayed in that hole for a little while.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to get out. And there was just it was actually when I had dinner with my husband once, it was his birthday. And we go out and I'm supposed to be cheerful and it's just like, hey, it's your birthday, this is great, let's do it. And I was just like, it was all false. It was all false. And I was like, something's wrong. I've got to fix this. And it was at that point that I started to I've got to put myself back together. I will tell you, like I used to be like this wild, brash, kind of not really loud, but like, hey man, let's go do this. Like, we got this. Hey, there's a challenge. Let's go do it. And I will tell you, during that time, I was just like, nope, I'm out. I'm going to just go sleep in a dark room. Totally not me. And I realized I have to try to put myself back together. And that's when I started to create the Warrior Framework, which the book is based on, about how do I understand all of this negativity that's going on in my head and how do I get rid of it? And how do I do something positive for myself? And that's where I started to kind of put things together. And really, it's based on what we do in the military when we have a real enemy that's coming towards us. And so I started to think, by the way, I'm a nerd. I like to think about things.
Yeah.
And so I was going through and trying to figure out, okay, well, what do we do for like real enemies? How can I do something like that for the enemies that are lounging around in my head? And that's when I came up with the framework and started practicing that over and over again, taking small steps, but really trying to like find the truth in all of this. One of the best things that I had was that I had all of these letters. Sometimes it's still hard. But I had all these letters from my troops, and they saw the truth of what was going on and how I had helped them. So that's also what helped me.
Yeah.
It was more like an anchor, to try to help me get through.
Yeah. They helped pull you out.
But it's one of those things where you have to find, you can stay with your status quo. It's easy. It's totally easy. The question is do you want to better yourself? If you do want to better yourself, you have to work at it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard and it's going to be painful. But that's how you make yourself better. And that's how you can start to claw yourself out at that ginormous hole that you might have fallen into. But it takes work.
Yeah. Yeah. Jen, what is at stake if we choose to stay in that hole and we don't fight?
Well, first off, are you happy where you are? Like, if you like being in the hole, stay in the hole. Nobody likes being in the hole. I hope not. But hopefully you realize that you're in the hole. I guess that's the first part. It's going to be mental. You're just going to feel like you're not worthy. Why don't you even try anything? And it's almost not like you're in your status quo anymore. You're basically backsliding because you're not trying anything new. You're not going out there. You're not trying to prove yourself, and the world is moving on without you. It's also a lot of physical things that can happen to you. A lot of times, all of that anxiety, that depression, it wears on the body. You might not be sleeping anymore. High blood pressure, your sugars are going to go like off the chart. And so you have all of these physical things that can go on as well. So don't just think of like, oh, it's just my head. No, realize that your body will also start to have some really serious issues if you stay down in that hole. And so it's one of those things where it's just like, do something good for yourself, not just your body, but also for your mind. One of the things I always talk about is just take one step, maybe just one step per day to try to crawl out of that nasty hole that you might have fallen into.
Yeah. Well, and I'm jumping to the end of the book, but I think it's important to talk about right here. The story about your mom, my Aunt Janie, and how you were able to say, Mom, why don't you come join me on the run? And she was like, what? Me? And you guys went on a little jog and you just did it one signpost at a time. And you just got to that next signpost and that next signpost and you just walked and jogged together. And then she realized it was like a seed was planted and she realized, oh my gosh, I can do this, even if it's just on my own pace. And then I remember, this is one of my core memories of my Aunt Janie, your mom, that on her 50th birthday, she ran a marathon, I believe. And if I'm remembering that correctly, and I was just blown away. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're 50 years old and you just ran a marathon. And it wasn't until I read that story in your book that I realized that she hadn't taken up running until much later in her life. And so one of the things that I picked up was just what's at stake is if we stay in that hole, then we we are not in a position to help others. And what a tragedy that is when we can't shed our light on other people and lift other people up, just like you're doing right now. And what a tragedy that would be if you just stayed in that place and we're not able to share that with the world. And so thank you for for getting out of that place and for doing what you do. It's amazing. And so I want to talk about the warrior framework. Would you tell us a little bit more? Because I love that basically you use all of these tactics that you have learned in your time in the Navy, and you're literally using those same tactics towards the enemies in our head. And that's why the book is, the subtitle is Harnessing Your Inner Strength to Silence Self-Doubt. So teach us through, quick 5-minute version or whatever, however long you want to take, to just give us what is the warrior framework and how can we use this to get out of our dark places that we're in and start to fight back against these voices.
Absolutely. So there's only 4 parts, which makes it super easy. Mm-hmm. Now, in the military, whenever we're out on patrol or we're basically trying to guard a base or whatever, so I'm going to give you the military version, and then I'm going to show you how you use it for your personal life.
Perfect.
So let's say that you're out there, you're manning your little post. And so the very first part is that you have to have situational awareness, like what's going on around you. That's the very first part. You see the trees, you see the road, you see all of that. Okay, so then somebody starts maybe like walking up to you. Now, we don't know if this person is a friend or a foe. So we have to basically assess what's going on. Is this somebody who's like needs our help, or is this somebody who wants to start a fight? Okay, so then whenever they keep coming and we realize, okay, this is not a good person, we have to ready ourselves. So a lot of times in the military, what that means is basically getting our weapons to the ready, trying to tell them to stop, trying to, hey, get back. We can shoot flares. We can do all kinds of different things to basically tell them, hey, stop what you're doing. And then if they just keep coming, that's when we have to act. Whether that might be trying to wrestle them to the ground, trying to arrest them. If it's a car that's coming at us, you can try to shoot out the engine block, whatever that might be. But it's really about perceiving everything that's going on around you. It's about assessing if somebody's a friend or a foe. Mm-hmm. It's about readying yourself for that enemy. And then it's finally about acting. And so that's what the warrior framework is. But we're not using it for physical enemies. We're using it for those cousins that you just talked about. Not you and I, not those kind of cousins. Now, we're good cousins.
Yeah.
So I always say that we have sort of like 2 additional voices that are in our heads. One of them is what I basically call the mean little voice. But that's the one that's on your shoulder telling you, you're not good enough. You should just wait. Don't do anything because you know what? You're not good enough and everybody's going to find out you're a fraud. I think we all kind of have that voice.
Yeah.
And then there's the other one that's like, hey, you know what? We don't have to do this hard task now. Let's go walk the dogs. Yeah, that's more fun. It's one that kind of like takes you on another path so that you're not doing the hard things towards your goal.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had these voices in my head. I mean, they were screaming, they were yelling, they were telling me I was horrible, like all of the things. And so what I started with is just perceiving. And it's really just listening to the voices in your head. And you had to figure out, is it rational or not? And so we call this metacognition. It's all about really just listening to your thoughts. A lot of times we just sort of go on and we just believe everything that we hear. Mm-hmm. Start to really listen. That's the whole first part.
Think about what you're thinking about.
Right. That's metacognition. So thinking about what you're thinking. And I know that sounds circular, but it's really what it is. Next, we're going to assess. Is it a mean little voice or is it something rational like, hey, man, don't put your hand on that stove because that's a bad idea? And we had to think about, is this helping us? Is it trying to hold us back? Is this a friend or is this a foe? Next, we have to ready ourselves. And this is kind of like my favorite part because this is where the warrior comes in. I honestly believe we all have a warrior that lives in us. It just wants to get out. Mm-hmm. So we have to prepare that warrior. So if we have these 2 little mean voices, and then we have this other voice that's like our warrior, we have to make sure that he's ready. Like he can go and take out these other 2. And that's what ready is all about. We need to make sure that our brains are literally trained to stop these other voices. We have training, we have discipline. We have to have, forethought whenever we go into meetings, like, how is this going to go? What do I feel? Go through all of these types of things. And then finally, just act. Act. Like if there's something where you're saying, hey, you know what? I don't know if I should do this. Just take one step. Just take that very first step towards whatever that goal is, whatever that dream is, whatever that is that lights you up inside. Just take the very first step. And so really that's what the whole circle is all about. And then you keep doing that.
One of the exercises that I liked in the book, and I actually did this on my birthday, which was an extra perk, but so I was like, oh, I feel good about myself. But you had us write down all of our accomplishments, or not all of five accomplishments. And you said, start there. Take 5 minutes and just write down a few things that you have accomplished that you are really proud of. And so we did that. And then you said, okay, now that you have those accomplishments, write how you achieved them. And the how is your strengths. Those are the things that you can contribute and give to the world and sort of give you your natural flavoring or whatever it is as a leader. Like those are the things that make you unique as a leader. And so I really appreciated that.
If you want to start even more simple than that, then just write down 1 win per day.
Yeah.
Start thinking about it. Like what is the one thing that you did today that was a win? For me, it's getting up on a Saturday, getting ready, doing a podcast with my cousin, which is awesome. So that's my win for today.
Yeah.
And as you start to do this repetitively, and most psychologists say do it for 28 days, do 1 win per day. What happens is that our brains, again, I'm a nerd. Our brains actually start to reform the neural pathways because we start to do this over and over again. And it makes us more positive because our brains are now looking for those 1 wins per day because we know that we're going to require that of them. And it's amazing. It's like as you get into this, you start doing this day after day, you start realizing, wait, I've had several wins. And write it down and you can see it. And it's like, that's real.
Yeah.
And then what you're talking about is kind of like that next level piece of like, taking all of those accomplishments, but then really internalizing, how did I do that? Would you mind sharing like maybe one of yours?
Sure. One of them that I wrote down was, I am a good mom. And I think that's an accomplishment. I love the mom that I am, and I'm really proud of that.
How do you do it?
Well, see, now I'm crying.
That's why I put like a
We're questioning.
I know. It's true.
Boy.
It's true. No.
Well, I work really hard to stay very present with my girls. And so I really try to not be distracted. And I really make an effort to really focus on them and really look them in the eye and engage with them all throughout the day. And I work really hard to keep myself regulated so that whenever they're having a breakdown, I don't completely snap every time. I can take a deep breath and I can engage them in a way that is loving and kind, and while still, holding boundaries. And no, just because you're having a meltdown doesn't mean that you get to have, stay up 30 minutes past your bedtime. You're still holding those boundaries. So anyways, I think those are a couple of reasons why.
Right. And so that shows that, you do have a lot of patience. You have a lot of stamina. So think about those also. It's like, those are some of your great strengths, and just like you said, like that's great that like you realize, hey, I want to be present. Those are great attributes and great strengths that you have.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is there anything else about your story that you wanted to share?
Kind of going back to the story of my mom and what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
The one thing, that I tell this whole story. By the way, my mom is incredible. I think I can't even remember how. I had to look it up, like how many marathons and half marathons. We run half marathons together. We run 5Ks together. We just had a really good time. But here's the part that I love about it is that it's not about, the chapter is talking about like running from signpost to signpost and all of that. And I
Yeah.
think people know and understand that. But what's more important is like, are you the person to say, hey, mom, let's go running?
Right. Right. Yep.
Because, and that's sort of like what we're doing here is like, hey,
Yeah.
how do we help other people? Yeah, we
Mm.
can go on, we can do our thing and just live our lives. But there's so much more to be said if we go out and we help others and help them become great. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you want to be really good at something, go and help others with whatever they're
Absolutely.
doing. Think about your friends, think about your extended family, that person in the cubicle next to you. Start thinking about how can you help them be their best.
Yeah. And how much more fulfilling that is, when you can do that. It's not you by doing that, you also get so much back, so much fulfillment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. So, my audience is mostly women. And
Mhm.
so, I would love to hear what big sister advice can you give us because you have such a unique journey with leading in a workplace and being a woman leader. And I know so many women in leadership positions that are amazing, but I think you have an extra special resume, so to speak. And so, what have you learned about being a woman leader when it's mostly men in the room? Is there just anything that you can share that you've learned, or maybe any takeaways that you would just give as big sister advice to anybody listening who may have a corporate job and they're feeling a little bit, insecure, or maybe a little bit like they're not being taken seriously? Is there anything that you would say to that woman listening?
Absolutely, because that's basically been my entire career as an engineer in the military, whatever it
Yeah.
was. A lot of times, we feel like we have to be like the men to
Yeah.
kind of blend in and kind of be more like them, and maybe we'll get noticed, or maybe we won't get noticed. Maybe that's something you also want, like to kind of fly, below the radar. You can do that. But I will tell you, the most success that I've ever had is when I was actually able to just be myself.
Mm, amazing.
And whatever that might look like. So I know that I am very empathetic. And once I started to show empathy and realize that it's not about me and it's about my troops and how do I make the troops the best that they can be, or even in the engineering world, like how can I make my junior engineers even more proficient than they currently are? I know that that's my personality, and I realized that, a lot of the men that I was around were not doing that. And I decided, you know what, I need to be myself because I was so uncomfortable not being myself. So I tell you, figure out who you are. And that might take a little while. And it took me about a year or two to try to figure out exactly who I was and how I wanted to lead. But once I figured that out, man,
Mm,
it was so much easier. It was totally easy. It's like, I felt good about going to work every day. I got excited about going to work every day. And because I was really looking at my subordinates and really trying to bring them up, that's when I started getting noticed by my bosses,
mm,
because I was different and I
yeah.
was creating great teams and we were doing awesome stuff. So I would tell you that, yeah, if you're in that man's world, yeah, it's tough, but you need to figure out how to be yourself.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can go on the way that you are, and if that makes you happy, great. But
Yeah.
man, be yourself. You will be so much happier. You'll be more fulfilled. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to do it.
Mm,
Be yourself.
yeah. That's amazing. Thank you. At my first, well, my job when I was in marketing, I started at 22 and I was very new, very fresh out of college, and I felt really insecure. My job was I was working with lawyers, and I was the account manager, and so I would be handling their accounts and walking them through their website redesigns and stuff like that. And so I would be sort of like a project manager slash account manager for them. And I had up to 60 lawyers at a time that I would be working with. And I remember going to my manager one day, Ben, he's awesome. And he was an amazing manager. And I remember confiding in him one day, and I was like, Ben, I just don't, I feel so insecure about my voice on the phone because it's very girly and peppy and you know and when I'm calling all of these lawyers and they hear my voice, I don't think that they're taking me seriously. And because I would hear sometimes somebody would answer the phone and they would say, "Oh, you sound young," or something like that. And so I was insecure, and so I took those comments as like, "Oh, well, they're not taking me seriously." And he said something that I will never forget. And he said, "It's not about your voice, it's about what you say. It's about the content of what you say. And if the content of what you're saying is good, it does not matter if you sound girly or anything like that. As long as what you're saying is good, that's what you need to focus on. And that is where you get taken seriously." And so that was just really relieving to me. And it was just something that I really held on to. And so I'm like, okay, I don't have to worry about what I sound like or what I look like if I'm focusing my energy on becoming better in what I do and providing value and what I'm saying and what I'm presenting, then that is where the real growth and respect will happen. And so that was very, very wonderful to hear early in my career like that.
That's a great mentor. Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just
he's
like,
great.
yeah, it's like, hey, just be professional,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like people will take you seriously.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great, Anna.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jen, is there any other lasting thoughts or any other things that you would like to share?
I just want to give two really important pieces of information
Yes,
to all
please.
your listeners. Okay,
Yes.
so number one, if you have a goal or a dream or whatever that might be, and you hit roadblocks, don't be afraid to pivot.
Mm.
Okay, pivoting is not quitting.
Mm.
Quitting is quitting.
Yeah.
But don't be
Mm-hmm.
afraid to pivot. I mean, look at my life. My gosh, I was like all over the place. I was in school, I was in the military, I was like at this Okay, all of that pivoting, it's just growing. So again, if you have something that is like that you want and you know that it's out there, just go for it and don't let those roadblocks stop you. You can pivot. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is don't get hung up on the money. And I know this is going to sound strange. I had a job where I was getting paid a lot of money whenever I was a civilian, and it was horrible. Literally, my husband would stick a glass of wine out the door,
Oh
say,
no.
"Drink this before you come in the house."
Yeah.
I mean, that's how bad it was. And I realized I was making a lot of money. It was great, but you know what? It was really draining on me. And so I
Yeah.
would tell you, find something that you love.
Mm.
And if you find something that you love, the money will take care of itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just find what you love. So those are
Mm.
my two biggest pieces of advice is don't be afraid to pivot and just go find that thing that you love.
Amazing. Oh, Jen, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your big sister advice with us. I'm so excited about your book. Where can people find you and connect with you if they have any questions or want to book you for a speaking engagement? Is there a place where people can go to connect?
Absolutely. So my website is jendonahue.com, Jen with two N's, Donahue, Donahue. There's like 5 spellings of Donahue. So anyways, that's out there. So if you want coaching, if you want to have me come and give you a keynote, if you want a workshop, that's the best place to go. The book, go to thewarriorframework.com and you can go there. You can pre-order. You can go to Amazon on October 23rd. But one of the cool
Ooh.
things that I'm doing is I'm giving away a whole bunch of stuff if you pre-order. So I'm giving away a free workbook. I'm giving away a free masterclass.
Wow.
Let's see, I've got like a Spotify list. You can join. I have a Facebook launch team. So if you go in, like you can basically order and you can get all this free stuff. You just had to go in and you just had to put your information in and boom, it's like it'll all show up in your email inbox. And I love to hear other people's stories. So please reach out. I want to hear about, how you've overcome obstacles. And I just think that's really interesting. That's probably the best way to get in touch with me. Just go to my website. There's a little form and just say hi.
Awesome. And I'll link all of that in the show notes as well. Jen, thank you so much. I appreciate your time today. Thank you for being you. And thank you for sharing your story with the world. Just so much love for you. And thanks again for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anna. It's been so great talking to you today.
Agreed. Okay, bye. Go enjoy your
Okay.
weekend.
Thanks, you too.